Nostradamus saw the world burn. Only these 5 nations will survive it. Have you ever looked around and felt like the world is holding its breath? Like something ancient is waking up beneath the chaos of our modern lives? From rising tensions to global disasters, it's easy to think these are just random events. But what if they aren't? What if what we're witnessing today was already seen centuries ago by a man who read the stars and glimpsed a world on fire? In the cryptic quatrains of Nostradamus lies a prophecy that points to a great collapse and the survival of only 5 nations. Which 5? Why them? And what does this mean for the rest of humanity, for us, as we scroll, work and hope in a world teetering on the edge? Before we dive into this mysterious vision of the future and what it could mean for your life today, remember to like this video, share it with those seeking deeper truths, and subscribe to The Journey of Wisdom. Because sometimes, to understand the present, we must listen to the whispers of the past. Number 1. Who was Nostradamus? To truly grasp the chilling predictions attributed to Nostradamus, the man who may have foreseen not only the fall of kings and crumbling of empires, but also the endurance of 5 nations beyond a future global catastrophe, we must first understand the man behind the mystique. Michel de Nostradam, born in 1503 in the French region of Provence, was no ordinary figure of his time. He lived through a Europe scarred by the Black Plague and deep political fractures, yet instead of retreating into fear or despair, he devoted his life to healing as a physician, studying the stars as an astrologer, and finally turning to prophecy when the suffering he witnessed became too vast to comprehend through medicine or science alone. In 1555 he compiled and published Les Prophéties, a collection of 942 cryptic 4-line poems, quatrains written in a mixture of medieval French, Latin, Greek, and astrological symbols. This obscure language wasn't just poetic flair, it was a deliberate choice to protect his work from religious persecution and political suppression, as openly predicting the fall of rulers or the rise of future powers could have easily led to his execution. His prophecies have stirred debate for centuries, with each generation seeing reflections of their own time in his words. Some interpretations suggest he foresaw the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte, the horrors unleashed by Adolf Hitler, even the Twin Towers falling in 2001. What makes his work both compelling and unsettling is how his vague yet strangely specific verses seem to echo through history, aligning eerily with real events long after his death. But beyond these well-known associations lies a darker, more ominous thread, a handful of quatrains that hint at a devastating world conflict yet to come, and 5 nations that will endure when others fall. It is this possibility buried deep in his verses that stirs both curiosity and dread, urging us not only to reflect on the fragility of civilization, but also to think critically about the direction our modern world is heading. Number 2. The Core Prophecy. Let's take a step deeper into the heart of a mystery that has puzzled minds for centuries. Hidden within the 942 quatrains written by Nostradamus are verses so cryptic, so seemingly out of place that they've long been brushed aside as poetic exaggeration or unfulfilled fantasy. But today, with the help of modern tools, geopolitical insights, historical context, and even artificial intelligence, these forgotten lines are beginning to glow with new meaning. Among them lies what we might call the core prophecy, a passage so evocative, so layered with warning, that it demands our attention. Let's take a closer look at one of the most talked about quatrains in this context. In lands where twin rivers run red, the crowned hawk shall fall from the sky. 5 shall remain where the others have bled beneath cold stars that do not lie. At first glance, it sounds like something out of a dark fable, but let's pause. What does it really mean? And what could it be trying to show us about the fate of our world? Let's begin with the first line. In lands where twin rivers run red. Many scholars suggest this refers to the region between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, known historically as Mesopotamia, what we now call modern-day Iraq and parts of Syria and Iran. A place rich in human history and tragically also in modern conflict. The imagery of the rivers running red evokes not just bloodshed, but ecological collapse and war. Could Nostradamus have seen a time when this cradle of civilization becomes one of its final battlegrounds? The next line, "The crowned hawk shall fall from the sky," is especially provocative. The hawk, often a symbol of military strength and dominance, might be hinting at an aerial power, a superpower even. The crowned aspect suggests a ruling force, possibly a nation at the height of global influence. Does this mean the fall of an empire? A collapse of global air superiority? What do you think? If the skies no longer belong to the strongest, who does that leave below? But the true heart of this prophecy lies in the next line. 5 shall remain where the others have bled. Here we find the chilling suggestion that, amid the ashes of a broken world, only 5 nations, or perhaps civilizations, will endure. This isn't about fear, it's about clarity, not panic but preparation. Nostradamus wasn't pointing fingers to frighten us, but maybe to remind us history does not sleep, and neither should we. And then comes the last line, "Beneath cold stars that do not lie." There's something haunting about this. The stars, often seen as symbols of fate or divine order, offer no comfort here. They simply shine, cold and indifferent, watching humanity repeat its cycles. Could it be that the universe is always showing us the truth, but we're too distracted, too divided, too afraid to see it? This prophecy isn't meant to cast a shadow over our spirit. It's a wake-up call. So now we ask you directly, if only 5 nations were to survive a collapse of global civilization, which ones do you believe have the resilience, unity and wisdom to carry on? Think about strength. Not just military, but cultural, spiritual, and environmental. Which peoples are living in harmony with the earth, with one another, and with their value? These are the questions we must explore, not to indulge in fear, but to inspire reflection. The value of this ancient wisdom lies not in the mystery, but in how we choose to respond to it today. As we continue this journey into the surviving 5, carry this with you. Prophecies aren't destiny, they're warnings, and warnings are gifts. If we listen, if we care, if we act with mindfulness and compassion, we have the power to shape the ending. Number 3. The 5 likely survivors as interpreted. 1. The United States of America. Among the 5 nations said to survive a world consumed by fire, the United States of America stands out as both a controversial and deeply symbolic candidate. Nostradamus, in one of his most debated quatrains, writes, "The eagle shall bleed but not die. From within its cities set alight, but the flag will not fall from its pole, though its wings are clipped by midnight's fire." Many believe this imagery unmistakably points to the United States. The eagle, America's proud national emblem, is wounded yet not slain. Cities set alight suggest turmoil, perhaps from civil unrest, widespread internal conflict, or even catastrophic attacks. And still, amidst the darkness, the flag remains aloft, a sign that the nation's core identity and spirit endure even through the flames of adversity. The phrase, "wings clipped by midnight's fire," evokes a sense of loss or limitation, possibly a reduction in global dominance or internal freedom. And yet this imagery does not foretell total collapse. It suggests painful transformation rather than destruction. When viewed through the lens of our modern era, this prophecy resonates deeply. The United States, despite its unmatched power, faces ongoing internal challenges: political polarization, economic inequality, social unrest, and the psychological toll of mass shootings, climate disasters, and a 24/7 news cycle that often amplifies fear and division. On the world stage, its influence is both respected and contested. Yet America's greatest strength has always been its capacity to adapt. From the ashes of the Great Depression to the uncertainties of a post-9/11 world, the nation has reinvented itself time and again. Geography plays a silent but critical role too. Flanked by the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, the US is naturally shielded in ways that many other countries are not. Add to this a culture of innovation, a strong military, and vast natural resources, and we begin to see the outline of a nation that, even wounded, may still weather the storm. For those of us watching history unfold today, the lesson here is one of resilience. We are not helpless passengers in a burning world. We are part of a people who have the power to question, adapt, and rebuild. If Nostradamus saw a bleeding eagle that refused to fall, then perhaps we are called not just to survive, but to heal and evolve. In your own life, whether you face personal challenges, shifting economies, or uncertainty about the future, remember that endurance is not passive, it is active. It is in every choice to stay informed, to remain hopeful, to connect with others, and to care for your community. As the eagle stands with wings damaged but flag still flying, so too can we endure with grace and conviction. If you've made it this far, you're clearly curious about what the future might hold for our world. Comment below with Future Survivor to show you're ready to face what's coming with open eyes and a prepared mind. Don't click away yet. There's still powerful insight ahead that could change the way you see global events and your place in them. Stay with us until the end to discover which nations Nostradamus believed would endure and why it matters to you today. 2. China. Next we come to China, a nation cloaked in symbolism, resilience, and strategic patience. Nostradamus writes, "The dragon shall rise with fireless breath, building towers on sands of time. It shall not strike first, but shall not fall. Its roots deeper than any river's rime." Powerful words, aren't they? Let's break that down together. The dragon clearly points to China, long associated with this mythical creature. But what does fireless breath mean? It may sound mystical, but it actually reflects something very real: China's ability to project influence without traditional warfare. Could this be about economic dominance, silent cyber tactics, or the rise of artificial intelligence? When a nation can shift global balance through technology and trade alone, does it still need fire to conquer? The line "building towers on sands of time" paints a picture of China's rapid expansion. Skyscrapers rising overnight, entire cities built in a decade. but it also warns of impermanence. Are these foundations truly stable, or will time test their strength? Still, the quatrain assures us, "It shall not strike first, but shall not fall," echoing China's historical pattern of acting defensively yet firmly. It's not a country that lunges. It waits, watches, and then moves with force when needed. So what keeps China standing while the world around it shakes? Perhaps the secret lies in that final line, "Its roots deeper than any river's rhyme." China's roots stretch back thousands of years. While empires have risen and fallen, China has persisted, shaped by dynasties, revolutions, and now modern governance with long-term vision. With a population of over 1 billion, a centralized political structure, and a culture that often values collective progress over individual disruption, China is positioned uniquely to weather global chaos. Ask yourself, how does a civilization that survived centuries of upheaval keep rising again and again? Could it be that endurance isn't about force, but about deep-rooted identity and strategy? For you listening today, here's what this means. True strength might not always roar. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it builds quietly, without needing to dominate. And sometimes it survives because its roots go deep into something ancient, patient, and wise. In a world obsessed with speed and reaction, there's something powerful in thinking long-term. Whether you're leading a family, a business, or simply your own personal path, consider this. Are you planting roots or just building towers? Because when the storm comes, only what's deeply rooted will stand. 3. Russia. Now let's talk about Russia. The third nation Nostradamus may have pointed to as a survivor in a world consumed by fire. He writes, "From the cold lands where the lights dance, the bear shall sleep through the fire. He will not roar, but neither will he fall, watching silently as others expire." If you've ever heard Russia called the bear, then you already sense the weight of this metaphor. And the lights that dance, they likely refer to the northern lights, casting a poetic image of Russia's cold, vast landscapes. But what's really being said here? Let's look closer together. Nostradamus paints a picture of a powerful force that chooses stillness over aggression, retreat over destruction, not because it is weak, but because it can. Russia is geographically massive, stretching across 2 continents, covered in dense forests, mountains, and endless tundras. That kind of land alone makes any full-scale invasion nearly impossible. And then there's the country's wealth in resources, oil, gas, minerals, that give it economic leverage even when under pressure. Despite sanctions, wars, and international criticism, Russia often finds a way to endure. Could it be that Nostradamus saw not a nation crumbling under fire, but one that survives by knowing when not to strike? Now, I want you to really think about this. What does it mean to survive by silence? Could the greatest strength sometimes be restraint rather than dominance? The bear doesn't roar in this prophecy. It watches. That line, watching silently as others expire, is chilling, isn't it? It suggests that Russia, rather than charging into global chaos, may simply endure by withdrawing into itself, outlasting others through sheer isolation and patience. In our modern world, where noise, conflict, and constant motion dominate headlines, this idea of enduring through stillness feels both unsettling and powerful. Russia's centralized power structure, deeply rooted national identity and history of surviving everything from Mongol invasions to world wars, all of that might be what Nostradamus was hinting at. And here's where it connects to your own life. What do you do when the world around you is on fire? Do you fight every battle? Or do you pick your moments? Sometimes wisdom lies in knowing when to act and when to wait. Like the bear, there's strength in silence, and there's clarity in patience. Maybe you don't need to react to every crisis, but instead anchor yourself in what makes you resilient. Your values, your inner calm, your roots. Because maybe survival, whether for nations or for people, isn't always about making the loudest noise. It's about outlasting the storm by knowing who you are when everything else is burning. 4. Japan. Let's begin with Japan, often referred to as the land of the rising sun, and a nation many scholars believe Nostradamus was pointing to in his cryptic visions of survival. In one of his more poetic verses he writes, "The land of the rising sun shall not set even when iron serpents coil the seas. It will stand with gardens untouched by flame and minds sharper than any blade of the West." This passage is striking, and when you look closer, it reveals layers of insight into Japan's unique position in the world. The iron serpents likely refer to modern naval forces, submarines, or the ever-watchful presence of military technology that surrounds island nations in turbulent times. Yet Nostradamus suggests Japan will not fall, even when threatened. And the phrase, "gardens untouched by flame," speaks to the country's ability to preserve beauty, culture, and life, even amid chaos. Doesn't that sound like Japan's post-war story? A nation flattened by the atomic bomb, yet rising in just a few decades to become a global leader in innovation, design, and precision. What does that say about a people's resilience? Despite its lack of natural resources and its vulnerability to natural disasters, earthquakes, tsunamis, and the lingering memory of Fukushima, Japan has repeatedly demonstrated the ability not just to recover, but to transform tragedy into strength. It holds a rare balance between deep-rooted tradition and cutting-edge modernity, combining ancient philosophy with robotic efficiency, quiet humility with relentless innovation. When Nostradamus refers to minds sharper than any blade of the West, many interpret this as Japan's technological edge, tools, systems, and minds sharper than military weapons. This interpretation feels even more relevant today, as the world pivots increasingly toward cyber power, digital infrastructure, and AI. Japan may not roar on the world stage with aggressive policies or military muscle, but its power lies in subtlety, discipline, and an unshakable sense of identity. And that brings us to a bigger question. In times of crisis, is survival only about strength, or is it about adaptability, discipline, and knowing who you are at the core? For you listening, perhaps this is Japan's quiet lesson to us all. You don't need to be the loudest or the largest to survive the storm. You just need to be grounded in your values, constantly improving, and willing to evolve without losing your essence. In your life, how do you balance resilience with grace? When the world around you feels uncertain, how do you stay rooted, calm, and ready to adapt? Japan shows us that survival doesn't always come with a sword. It often comes with a steady hand, a focused mind, and the wisdom to grow even in the shadow of disaster. Still watching? That means you sense the importance of what Nostradamus foresaw. Type "prepared soul" in the comments if you're ready to explore how ancient prophecy might hold keys to our modern fate. The most crucial insights are still ahead. Stay until the end and discover why survival isn't just about nations. It's about awareness. 5. India or Brazil? Now we come to perhaps the most mysterious part of Nostradamus's prophecy. The fifth nation said to survive a world in flames. Unlike the others, this one is open to interpretation, and that alone makes it fascinating. Some believe it's India, while others are convinced it could be Brazil, or even a broader symbol representing neutral nations of the global south. The quatrain reads, "Where the river swallows stars, and music guides the children, a land of many tongues shall unite, shielded by no army but fate itself." Let's explore that together. The phrase, "river that swallows stars," could be seen as a poetic nod to two of the world's most iconic rivers, the Ganges in India or the Amazon in Brazil, both deeply tied to their nation's culture, identity and life force. And what about music guides the children? That line alone brings a sense of vitality, joy and innocence, hinting at countries where culture, rhythm and human connection still take center stage in daily life. The idea of a land of many tongues points clearly to diversity. India, with its dozens of languages and rich history of spiritual and cultural coexistence, or Brazil, where indigenous heritage, African roots and European influences blend into one vibrant mosaic. But the most striking line is the last. Shielded by no army, but fate itself. What do you think that means? Could it be that survival doesn't always come from military power, but from a kind of spiritual resilience, a deeper connection with the earth, and a willingness to stay out of conflict? India has long followed a path of non-alignment and peaceful resistance, often choosing diplomacy and endurance over domination. Brazil, while not free of internal struggles, tends to remain distant from major global military entanglements and benefits from geographical isolation that could offer protection in times of global chaos. So perhaps Nostradamus wasn't pointing to a superpower in the traditional sense, but to a nation or group of nations that survives by being deeply human, by holding on to community, harmony, and the strength of the collective soul. So let me ask you, when the world feels like it's falling apart, what are you really relying on to keep you safe? Is it strength? Or is it connection? Is it weapons? Or is it wisdom, culture, and the shared spirit of the people around you? This prophecy invites us to rethink what survival truly means. It's not always about having the biggest army or the loudest voice. It's about grounding ourselves in compassion, unity, and meaning. Whether you're navigating personal storms or watching the world change around you, let this be your reminder. Sometimes, the quiet strength of people who sing, speak different tongues, and hold tightly to each other can be the most unbreakable force of all. Number 4. Not just survival, but rebirth. Throughout history, humanity has often turned to prophets during times of uncertainty, and few names spark more intrigue and concern than Nostradamus. His cryptic verses have been studied for centuries, yet in our modern world, filled with real threats of war, environmental collapse and social unrest, his words strike an unsettling chord. He spoke of floods, famine, burning cities and skies raining fire, images that resonate with today's headlines. The iron birds raining fire conjures haunting visions of air raids and potentially nuclear devastation, while crowns melting hints at the collapse of long-standing institutions and the loss of leadership we see mirrored in political upheaval around the globe. When Nostradamus wrote of cities drowning in silver foam, we can interpret this as not only literal tsunamis, but also financial systems collapsing under the weight of greed and unsustainable debt, threatening entire populations with economic ruin. And the ominous line, "The world breathes ash," brings to mind the terrifying reality of nuclear fallout or widespread fires, perhaps even a symbolic reflection of how our modern lifestyle chokes the earth and ourselves with pollution, conflict, and unchecked consumption. From a Buddhist perspective, these signs are not just prophecies, they are warnings, gentle bells awakening us to the consequences of our collective actions. As the Dhammapada reminds us, all that we are is the result of what we have thought. The mind is everything. What we think, we become. These foretold calamities are not set in stone. Rather, they may be the natural outcome of choices made without wisdom, compassion, or restraint. It is not too late. Instead of focusing on fear, we can focus on transformation. If war represents the peak of human delusion and anger, then peace is its antidote. And peace begins within. Social breakdown reflects a loss of trust and unity. Therefore, healing starts with each of us treating others with kindness, understanding, and sincerity. Environmental disaster is not the will of fate, but a direct result of our detachment from nature. Buddhism teaches interdependence, that all things are connected. When we poison rivers, cut down forests, or value profit over life, we harm not only the earth but ourselves. Now more than ever we must slow down, observe the world around us, and reconnect with the deeper truths. As Thich Nhat Hanh wisely said, "When the crowded refugee boat is met with compassion, all suffering is transformed." Let us not wait for collapse to find our compassion. These prophecies, if anything, remind us of impermanence. Nothing lasts forever, not empires, not economies, not even suffering. In this ever-changing world, the only lasting refuge is in awakening, in mindfulness, and in the goodness we cultivate in our hearts. The future can be shaped by fear or by awareness. If we choose awareness, we can build a world not defined by Nostradamus's disasters, but by healing, resilience, and harmony. Amidst the noise of war and collapse, we can choose silence to listen. Amid the burning cities, we can find refuge in acts of courage and community. Amid a world breathing ash, we can choose to breathe mindfully and live intentionally. This is the way of the Dharma. Not to escape the world's suffering, but to transform it. Number 5. Not just survival, but rebirth. When we talk about survival in the face of destruction, it's easy to focus on who makes it through, who escapes the fire, the flood, or the fall. But survival alone isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning of something much deeper. In the writings attributed to Nostradamus, a powerful message emerges. Not one of triumph for a select few, but of deep responsibility. He speaks of 5 nations that will survive a world left in ashes, a planet wounded by war, climate, or collapse. But this survival is not a prize to be claimed. It is a burden to be carried with wisdom and care. The real question isn't who survives, but what kind of world is left to rebuild. In this silence after chaos, when the dust settles and the noise fades, what remains are scarred lands, broken borders, and societies in desperate need of healing. And that's where the real meaning of Nostradamus's prophecy begins to unfold. Not in survival, but in spiritual rebirth. In one of his most mysterious and poetic quatrains, he writes, "From the 5 corners shall rise one song, sung in voices ancient and new." They will plant the seed of the lost Eden beneath a sky that finally weeps clean. What do these lines truly mean? Could it be that the survivors will not rebuild for conquest or control, but for connection, that instead of falling into old patterns of division and dominance, they will choose a different path, a path of unity, where ancient wisdom is not forgotten and new voices are finally heard? This is not a call to power, but a call to purpose. The one song speaks to harmony, cooperation, and the joining of cultures and perspectives. The lost Eden could be more than just a mythical place. It might be a symbol for the world we've lost, a world in balance with nature, with one another and with ourselves. And the sky that weeps clean may be the cleansing of greed, hatred, and delusion, the poisons of the human heart that have fueled so much destruction. What if this is not just a warning, but an invitation for all of us, not only the 5 mentioned, to participate in this rebirth? How do we begin planting the seeds of our own Eden right now, wherever we are? What kind of future do you want to help build, not just for your nation, but for all living beings? The message here is clear. Survival without transformation is meaningless, but survival that leads to compassion, wisdom, and cooperation, that is the true victory. Perhaps this is what Nostradamus meant when he hinted at a new world not ruled by force, but guided by spirit. This vision of spiritual awakening urges us to pause and ask, what are we doing today that contributes to the healing of our world? Are we nurturing relationships, supporting justice, caring for the earth, and listening deeply to those who have been silenced? The story of the 5 nations isn't just about countries, it's about us. Each of us holds a corner of that song. Each of us can be part of that planting. The prophecy does not belong to the past or the future. It belongs to this very moment. And in this moment, we are given a chance to choose. So the lesson here is simple but profound. Survival is not the goal. Awakening is. From the ashes, something greater can rise, not through fear, but through love, not through dominance, but through service. The future belongs not to those who take, but to those who give back, who rebuild with kindness and courage. May we each find our voice in that one song and help plant the seeds of a more compassionate, unified, and awakened world. And so, as we reflect on the warnings and wisdom buried in Nostradamus's words, let us remember, survival is not the end, it is the beginning of deeper responsibility. The true test is not who endures, but who chooses to rebuild with compassion, wisdom, and unity. If these insights moved you, helped you reflect, or sparked curiosity, please like this video, share it with others seeking deeper truths, and subscribe to the Journey of Wisdom. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming explorations into ancient teachings, modern meaning, and timeless truths. Because in a world that feels uncertain, the path forward begins with awareness, and the journey starts with you. Thank you for walking this path with us.